Wow, look at me. I am now a Dragon 64. And not a Dragon 32. Oh yeah, baby, let's party.
Hi guys, and welcome back. So we're going to carry on with the Dragon 32, and in this episode I hope we're going to find the problem that is stopping this from starting up and running properly. So we're going to look at changing one of the large ICs that is soldered into the board, and we're also going to look at the RAM as well. I'm picking it could be the RAM because with a lot of those early RAMs using the -5 volts, when you lose the -5 volts it damages the RAM and you get all sorts of weird errors, and it doesn't take long for it to damage the RAM when it drops the -5 volts. So what I'm going to do, as you'll see in the video here, I've got some 4164s and they don't need the -5 volts, but we can convert them with a couple of pins bent out and wired correctly. We can make those into 16k by 1 bits or 4116s. Okay, so that's a plan, Stan. So grab yourself a drink, something to nibble on if you want to, and a comfy chair, because we've got to get on with it. Okay guys, so here we are back with the old Dragon 32. Still has the cheese coloured case on it, which is quite yellow and stained, and the old label, and that I haven't put any of that new stuff on since last looking at this. I haven't had time to get back into it. So now with the other things taking a little bit more of a back seat and waiting for a few parts to finish off the Yamaha, we're going to have another look at this. Taking the lid off, we'll just go over a little bit of what's going to happen. In the Dragon 32, what we've done is changed this chip, we've changed the processor, and I have actually gone through and changed this chip here, and I had socketed it from the last video. And I've tried the BDP in here and it's made no difference to the video, and this is a different chip in here as well. So the only other thing I can think of is it could be a RAM issue, and I'm thinking we're probably going to have to take the RAM out and change it. Some of the RAM in here looks different anyway, and it's not what I've done, but some of it looks bright and some of it looks dull, like it's different plastics. So I think the best thing to do, because this is the older 5, 12 and -5 volt RAM, would be to take it out, socketed it, and put in some more modern RAM that's not as susceptible to dying as what the 4116 RAM is. It was noted for causing issues back in the day. So I think that's going to be a first port of call. I think would be taking this board out and desoldering those RAM chips and putting sockets in, and then we'll make up some RAM and put some RAMs into it and see how we go from there. Alright guys, so I think that's where we're going to go. I'll strip this all out and get the board ready, and then we'll come back and desolder the RAM and put the sockets in. Alright, so I will see you shortly. Okay guys, in case you haven't seen when I've been desoldering the chips out of the boards before, it is on some older videos that I'll show you, but I'll just take you through it again. And the easiest way to do this is to heat the board with hot air and then go through with the vacuum desolderer if you've got a vacuum desolderer. If you don't, you could use a desoldering pump, and that it's a little more fiddly and mucking around, but it will get the job done, just takes a little longer. So what I do, the next one in line, I just gently heat the pins And you only do that for a few seconds, and it's just to warm the board up, and then get the desoldering pump and start desoldering. Now the thing is with the board being warmed up and the desoldering pump, is that the ground planes and that, it makes it a lot easier to desolder. Generally when I'm desoldering, I'll stick the desoldering gun on, count to 4, and then pull the trigger on 4, and it generally just sucks the solder right out. Sometimes you may get a really bad ground plane, and you might have to reheat it again to get it to desolder. Sometimes you can get it from the other side if you heat up the other side of the board. And I'll just show you, because sometimes you will get solder on the other side of the boards on the pins as well, and it doesn't always get taken out the bottom from the solder pump, and I'll show you how I get them off. 2 more to do. That's a good point. Some of the pins have been bent over time, and it's just makes them a little harder to desolder. Right. So just make sure the soldering pump is clear. So what I do now is I get my pick, and I get the hot air again. And then what you find sometimes is along the top side of these pins, those solders come through, and it's soldered them on the pads on the top. So what I do is I gently go down either side of the chip and just warm it up a little bit. And then I'll stick the pick under the front and just let the weight sit on it, and you'll feel it. As soon as the solder goes molten, you'll feel the chip will just start to lift up by itself. And when you get to that point, just make sure that all sides of it are, the solder has melted, and then you should be able to just gently pull the chip up and out like that. And then just use a pair of tweezers to move it off the board. And then what I do is, before it cools down too much, I like to hold it up to a light just to make sure all the holes are desoldered, and if not, then while it's still warm you can use your desoldering pump or gun to actually clear the holes out. That's good. All those are clear now. And that's all there is to it, and it's just a matter of going through and doing each of them as you go along. And once this is done, and these boards are a little bit weird, this has like 9 on one row and 7 on the other. Don't know why. It's probably placement of chips on the board probably. But yeah, so I just go through and take the rest of these and those off and put the sockets in, and then we'll come back to it doing the other ICs. Hey guys, so I've got all of the sockets in for the RAM, and what I'm doing is I'm just going through it and realigning all the legs on the RAM chips on the 4116s. And to do this, what you need is a pair of pliers. Now these are some old ones I've had from a long time ago, but they're flat inside on both sides. They don't have the ridges in like normal pliers do, and these are really good because sometimes you'll find the pins, they're not straight and they might be bent, or they might have like a wave in them, and this will flatten them out so you don't have that waviness in the pins, because that's the first thing that's going to cause it to fail and go sideways on you in the socket and end up bending and breaking a pin. So these little wee ones are really good because you can get in between the pins to straighten them up as well. And then what I do is then I just get one of these pin straighteners for going straight up and down, and I put in there, give it a squeeze, and that lines it up so they will actually fit into the sockets like so. Alright, and so what I'm going to do is I'll go along and I'll do all the others. I've got the hot air on just in case there's solder on the ends of some of these pins and I need to take that solder off. Alright guys, so I'll carry on doing this and then we'll come back to it when we've got it all done and we'll try firing it up and see what we get from there. Alright, see you soon. Right, so I've got those all back in there now, and as you saw, one of these, I actually put it in the wrong way around, so I had to pop it out and put it back in. So I want to try this after resoldering all those ICs that were a little bit dodgy from what I saw underneath with the connections, and see if it makes any difference. If it doesn't, then I know we need to look at something to do with this RAM. It will also tell me, because I don't know which order these were in when I took them out, it could change the problem, because we may have gone from the faulty ones, which may have been in the bottom of the 32K, and we've swapped them around and put the faulty ones in the top 32K, so then the machine might boot up and work fine. But we will find out. I will plug this all back together and we'll give it a go and see if it comes out with anything. Alright, be back shortly. Okay guys, so just turning it on, and yeah, still just getting the black and white screen. I'll just bring you around so you can see. As you can see there, and I just get noise going through the audio. But that's what we're getting. So I'm picking it could be a RAM issue. I think what we're going to do is we're going to look at taking the RAM out and changing the RAM. I don't think I have got any 4116s kicking around. And as I was saying, I would really like to change these with the 4164s and get rid of that -5 volt rail. Alright, so let me find me RAM and we will go through converting them to 4164s. I mean, the other thing you could look at doing is making a board to replace these and go with more modern. That would be another way of doing it, but it doesn't keep it in the realm of what it really was originally, the old through-hole type stuff. Sometimes you have to go that way because there's no other option and parts aren't available. But I think we will look at popping this RAM out and changing it over and seeing what happens. Alright guys, we'll see you soon. Hey guys, so I was looking at doing the mod on this board for the 64Ks to 16K, and I found on the Dragon forum there's a mod to turn these into a 3264. So it's a mod of the board, and with a software keyboard command you type in directly after it's booted, it switches it into the 64K mode from the 32. So the alterations just change a bit of decoding logic on the board, so you're able to swap out the first 8 16Ks with the 1-bit by 64Ks. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pop those in, and that'll turn this into a 3264. I think that's going to fix some of me problems, because we can disable that -5 volts, which we don't need. Alright, I will show you all the information on this as we go along, and we'll head over now and start making the mods to go onto this board. Okay, I'll switch over now. Right, so here we are. So on the board here, that's just a paint pen I've drawn on here. And there's one long trace we've got to make across here. There's a shorter one here and a little one across there. Those are the three main on that side. And on this other side we have to remove this resistor, and then we take a wire that goes from here to ground. And then there's just one on this other side. Down the back here there is one track we actually have to break it between, where it just runs from one pin, skips over to and goes to the fourth pin in the line on the same IC. So we just got to break that track so that they don't make connection. Then once all that's done, down the back here we've just got to break a couple of tracks and then reroute the 5 and 12 volt rails so we can get rid of the minus 5 volt. And we're only going to use these first 8 along the back here. This one and these other 7 aren't used. If I'd known about this mod earlier, I wouldn't have bothered putting these sockets in. But the thing is this can all be reversed and put back to how it is now if someone wants to turn it back into an original 32. The 64 gives you a little more options on running some of the later model software and some of the slightly enhanced software that runs better on the Dragon than the earlier stuff did. It looks a lot nicer. Alright, so we'll carry on with that. We'll do this back part first, then we'll come over and do this bit, and then I'll carry on and show you the next bit where we do the mods down the bottom here, and hopefully this will sort out our Dragon and get it up and running again. The other problem that I have seen that it could be is this IC here, and this is a weird IC. It's a 2S, it's a SFC 2318DC, and have a look on the net and you cannot find anything about them. There is the odd place that might be saying we're selling them new, but no data sheets, no nothings. Now they are an op-amp. They're used in the video side of things, and you can replace them with an LM318. They're replaceable by those. That's just this one up the top here. These ones are readily available. Look, the ones that are down this end of the board are readily available. This one's a different one, and yeah, they're quite hard to find. Alright guys, so I will get on and do these mods in the bottom here and cut that trace, and then I'll come back to you. I don't think you need to see me soldering this up. I've bent all the wires up already, as you can see on the desk here. It's got the long one, the medium one, and there's just a little wee short one there. So I just got to tin all these up, solder them on, cut that track, and then I've got to make one up for this. I haven't made one yet, and pop that resistor out. So we use that wire, and we just go from there, and we open this wire up and solder it in down here. And we remove that completely, so we don't need it. But what I might do is I might just take it out and put a heat shrink or something on the end of it and just leave it to one side, so if someone wants to reverse it later on, it's easy enough to pull it up and solder it back in. Alright, so I will get on and do that, and then I'll come back to you when it's done. Alright, so I will see you soon. Right, so those are all done. So I'll show you underneath here. Got all the 3 traces done, and the brake down here. Down there's where the brake is, and I tested the continuity between the 2 pins and that spine. That's the other jumper I've put on, and that's the end of the resistor, and I've just heat shrunk the other end of it, and I thought, well, I'll leave it there, so if someone wants to reverse it, it's easy enough to unsolder and take this out and drop the leg back in and resolder it in. So the only other thing I've got to do now is we've got to go through, and it's these rails at the back here. They've got to be swapped around and changed. So, and there's a wire over here I've got to run down to here for the address lines. That's the only other one I've got to do. So failing that, that's what we're going to do next. Hey guys, so I made a bit of a boo-boo. Yeah, read everything 2, 3, 4 times before you do anything. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Right, so on this board for the Dragon, the mods I've actually put on the back here, one of them was wrong. There is two of these chips on here, and one trace goes to, and that one goes on this side, but the other one went to this one over here, not over this side like I've actually drawn onto it. So that's just a paint pen, so I'm going to take that off anyway. But the other two were fine. It was just this one, I went the wrong way. I went to the left and I should have gone to the right. It's the problem when you're working upside down on some of these boards, and you can get sidetracked. But I haven't cut any traces yet, so I haven't got to that point. But that's what we're going to be doing shortly. We're going to be just cutting those traces. Alright, and I am going to put up some pictures of the mods that I've done and what chips they're going to, and that. All the information online tends to be just text on saying cut here and around about this place and around about that place, and I had to read it several times to try and get my head around what they were talking about, because some of it is a little vague. So I'm going to clean these white paint lines off and start looking at the cuts in the track on the other side. We've got to do that. We've got to run a couple of jumpers on. Alright guys, so we'll be back shortly and carry on with this. Right guys, so back to the board now, and the next step is to remove the minus 5 volts from the RAM, and to do that, this is the minus 5 volt that comes in on the board down the bottom here, this track here, and we don't want to cut it off right at the beginning because it needs to go to a transistor that's here, and we leave that there. Now this is a tantalum across here for decoupling, and we can leave that in and cut the board on the top, but I'm just wondering if it's going to be neater if we cut it at the bottom here and take that tantalum out, because we're not going to end up using that track. Because if we do it down here, over here where I put the white dot, or we can come up the top here and we can cut the track over the back here. So we can do one or the other. Taking this out won't fix our problem because it's a through plated hole, and we need to, it's basically just taking the minus 5 out altogether. We don't use that. That's pin 1 on the ICs, on the RAM ICs, and we don't use pin 1 on the RAM ICs. So that's why I thought it would be tidier doing it underneath, and then if someone wants to put it back, it'll be quite easy just to run a link from the transistor over to the leg of the tantalum and tantalum capacitor and put it back in. So I think that's what I am going to do. So I'm going to cut this one here now. And this is one of the craft knives I've just gotten too. If anybody's seen the parts and pieces one that I've just done. I might just have to put the magnifier on, guys, so it might be in your way for a wee bit that you're not going to be able to see what I'm doing. I just got to make sure I do cut that trace, that's all. And of course another way you can do this is, once you've cut either side of this, you can heat it up with like a soldering iron, and then that'll help you lift the pad, the cut track off a lot easier. or the other way you can do this too. So if you took one of these, if you took one of these tips off, and you can put a chisel tip into it. Which is like one of these flat tips. Pull this one out for you so you can have a look. And it's this one here, so it's a straight flat chisel tip. So one of those would be easy to get in there and actually take it out with. Which, now that I've actually done that, I will loosen this off. We'll pop that one out and we'll pop this one in. Okay, put that up here so we don't lose it. I'll put it the other way around so I know which one it was I took out. Now, where are we? Down here. Okay. So a thinner one of these would actually be better, because this is actually quite a wide blade. But it is working, it's coming off. Yep, and let's cut that track out now. Yep, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see that, but bring it up to you. No, it's going to be too dark for you to see. But you might be able to see it over the back there where I've cut the track. I'll see if I can point it out to you. Yeah, I'll put some more light up there and you might be able to see what I am talking about. And it's over the back here. It's over the back here. So that's where I've cut the track through. And so what I'll do is I'll put the multimeter on it just to make sure that track is broken. Go to continuity. Okay, and we'll check that track. And yeah, there's no continuity. No continuity across that track at all. That's cool. So that one is actually now broken. And what we can do later on is we can actually put something on that, a little bit of solder or something over it, just to bridge that track so it doesn't oxidize or anything, or a little bit of nail polish or something like that. Turn that off so it doesn't go flat. Bring this down and out of our way so we're not getting blinded by the light. Right, so that's that one done. The next thing we have to do is take off this 12 volt rail here. So this is going to be cut through here and through here, and then we're going to run a wire from here to here, because that puts the 12 volts back onto the cartridge port over here. Why we're cutting this off here is because pin 8 on these old RAM chips is now going to become a 5 volt rail, and that's what the decoupling capacitor is left on here for. So we're going from this side of the cut to this side of the cut, so it puts 12 volts back through to here, and then later on we're going to run a bridge from here to the 5 volt rail, and then that is going to give us our 5 volts on the right pin. And this old 5 volt rail in the back here, which we have to cut out at both ends, is going to be for our extra decoding line we're going to need for the 4164s. So they need an extra decoding line that the 4116s didn't have. That was used by one of the voltage pins. So that's the only other one there, and then we just got to run a a wire from address line 4 down to pin 9 on that rail to give us that extra address line. Right, so I will go through now and we'll cut this. I will probably cut both of these at the same time to save mucking around, and then it's just a matter of putting the jumper wires in to bridge what we need to bridge to give us the 5s and the 12s, etc., the right way around that we need them. Alright, so I will carry on with this and we'll get this done. Okay guys, so those are all cut and done now, and definitely breaks between them. I can physically see them, and there is no copper in amongst those. I do need to give this probably a little bit of a wash down with some IPA. I decided not to do the one on the back and did it on the top, since I was doing the top ones at that time. Less mucking around. So now what we're going to do is just run our bridge wires to the right ports that we need to. Alright, so we'll get on with that. Okay, and so there we have our first wire in there from here to here, which then puts the 12 volts back onto the cartridge slot. So the next one I've got to do now is add in the 5 volt. The 12 volt's only 300 milliamps, so it doesn't need to be a real heavy wire. The 5 volt needs to be a bit heavier because it is rated higher. So I'm just looking at a couple of wires I've got here to see which is probably going to be the better of the two. I think the yellow one's a softer wire, so I'm going to use that to run. It should handle all the power it needs. So that one to me I think is probably going to, that one there's probably going to be the better one to run. It's the same thickness as the other one, but it's a lot softer to use. So I think I will use that one instead. Okay, so we've got our 5 volt rail back in now, and I've gone from over where it was cut. I had to re-bridge down in there. What they were saying was you had to cut it down in here, and the problem is it's still in circuit because there's a resistor over here. So I've come back to here because there's a track that runs underneath this, and I cut it there, and then I've run the 5 volts from here back onto the line at the back here that we need to run it to. And this back track over here, this was the 12 volt line, which is now we've made it the 5 volt line, because the 64 by 1 bits, that's your 5 volt there, which used to be the 12 volt on the old 16s. So that's all been taken care of now. So that's on there. Our 12 volts is going through to there. So those are all done. Our -5 has been disconnected off pin 1. So the only other thing we now need to do is we need to run a wire which goes from pin, I think it is pin 4 up here, and we've got to bring it down, and it goes to where the old pin 9 is on here. Now that I think I will run with a trace on the back of the board rather than on the top of the board. So I'll sort that out and do that. I've done this one down the back here. They wanted you to join it up here from over the side to here, and that bridges over top of this 12 volt wire they made us put in, and I thought it was a bit too close, so that's why I brought it further down and bridged it down a couple of IC sockets further away. And not only that, it just stops the wire from getting so hot as well when you're trying to stick them in and melting. So that one's done, and yeah, as I say, we just got the other wire to go over here for the other address line, and I think that is about it. And I've just got to go over everything and just double check it. Okay, and so that last one I've just done is on the top here. They wanted you to take it from pin 4 here, run it round and put it on the 5-bolt rail that we've already cut both ends on the bottom here. Now they connect via that 5-bolt to pin 9. So what I've done is on the back here I've just taken a wire and just run it from pin 4 to pin 9 on the 5-volt rail, and I've gone along and tested all of those, and they're all connected on the 9 bottom ones. You only need 8, but I've just joined it on so it's on the 9, and these are disconnected, which are fine. So that's the last bodge wire we have to put on here for this, and the rest of it is all done now. So that's what we've done. So I will put up all the pictures of close-ups of all the wires I have put on, and so I can show you guys exactly what I've changed on here and what I've cut. And then the next thing to do would be to try it with some 64K RAMs in it. Alright, so I think that will be another video. I think this one's gotten a little long, so I think that's where we're going to leave it for now, and we'll come back in another one. So guys, we're getting there, and I think this is a better option than the others. It can be reversed and be put back to the original if someone so wished to, but I think this gives us the best of both worlds. As you'll see in the next part, there's an option when you boot to type in a command that then turns on the bank switching to give you the full 64K, which is what the Dragon 64 uses. There is a caveat with that, and that some of the OSs that came out for the 64 won't run natively because on boot they look for the RS-232 hardware, which is not there. So there is a small caveat where you've got to run a couple of poke commands, and then it will run fine because it bypasses it and then tells it to soft reboot and then run the OS 9. The other one, Flex something or other, I think it is, that works fine, but there are some caveats with that where it's not 100% compatible with a lot of the software. But yeah, it depends on what you want to do with it. So anyway, I am going to end this one here. As I was saying, it's getting a bit long and taking you through all the work that had to be done on the board, etc. to do this. And as I've said, I've only seen maybe 1 or 2 videos on the net that sort of give you an idea, but they don't go really in depth to what they're cutting where and that type of thing, and then where they're bridging. They're saying, oh, I did this, and then it's like, oh no, well then later on I changed my mind and I did a wire here, and you didn't even see what they did and how they fixed or what they took it from or anything. And I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to show you that. Okay, so that's the end of this one, and the next one, hopefully we'll get this up and running for you, and the dragon will be alive. So I think it'd be nice being a switchable between 32 and a 64. I think would be really, really cool. There was a project out quite a wee while ago where a guy who was making a switchable unit to go internally. I've contacted the person, but I never heard anything back from him. And the unit he was making was modded so you could run it as a Dragon 32, a Dragon 64, and a Coco. It had a circuit board in it which switched everything over for you, gave you the extra RAM, etc. And also for the Coco, it changed the keyboard around, so you had a proper Coco keyboard. Isn't that cool? And this was all within the same case. So I was really hoping he'd get back to me. It's been quite a few years since he was saying he was prototyped and making these, and I sort of thought, well, what's the harm in asking if he wasn't interested in making them anymore, if he could give me the schematics and the parts and list and that sort of thing, I would make one myself, and just so people can see what is out there still. But as I say, I've heard nothing from him. So I think it's sad when these things go like that. If people get to the point they're going, I can't be bothered making these anymore, please see someone who's got a GitHub page, or go to PCB Way or JLC PCB and do them as a shared project. You make yourself a little bit of money for the boards, and it gives the option to other people who want to make them and keep these alive. So guys, that's the end of my ranting for now. Anyway, as I always say, you have a great day, you have a great week. Until we see each other next time. Ciao.